I'm here to talk about the First Step Act and how voting for Donald Trump is in Black America's best interest, because he's willing to do things for Black America that past presidents weren't willing to, and he actually listens to those who give him suggestions. Like we'll see here with this one woman. Someone spoke to Donald Trump on her behalf and helped, change her life and get her out. So the First Step Act has affected a lot of people's lives who were in prison, who didn't really have hope before, and now have hope and have gotten out. So if you really think that the prison system that we have set up right now and the way courts are and stuff, that our justice system unfairly targets blacks, then President Trump should be one of the first candidates you should think about voting for, because he is actually implementing or helping implement policies that combat this and actually help decrease the prison population of nonviolent offenders and things like that. Someone talked to him about it and he was like, yeah, that makes sense, now I understand. So yeah, go ahead and watch this first video.
The First Step Act serves as a model for criminal justice reform as the state level and all over the state level, all over every aspect of what we do, and throughout many states that are following our lead and already moving similar legislation forward. Many of them are, including Arizona, Florida, Illinois, Missouri, and Mississippi. The First Step Act also ensures that those in prison are placed closer to their families and home communities so they can have that communication that they need, greatly easing their return to society. It's really important. And finally, the law rolls back provisions of the 1994 Clinton crime law that was so devastating to so many and that disproportionately impacted the African American community. Nobody believes how much, and now they understand it. In less than 4 months, more than 500 people with unfair sentences have been released from prison and are free to begin a new life. One of these newly freed Americans is Troy Powell, who is with us today. In 2004, Troy was sentenced to 20 years for doing a drug offense. During his 15 years in prison, he took courses and worked as an electrician, and he got really good at being an electrician, really good. In fact, if you ever lose your job, come see me. I need electricians. We could use them right here in the White House, Troy. You want to know that? In February, Troy was released under the First Step Act. 9 days later, he was hired at Boone Lumber Company in Lenoir, North Carolina. And now Troy is saving, and really saving, a lot of money because he's doing well. Our economy is helping a little bit, Troy, I'll tell you.
This next video is of a woman who Kim Kardashian advocated for her for her. And not only did it talk to Trump, but that was included with the First Step Act. That's one of the things she talked to Trump on the woman's behalf. And they, she was a part of this when this act affected her and let her out.
I'm feeling no handcuffs, nothing on me. I'm free to hug my family. I'm free to live life. I'm free to start over. I cannot. This is the greatest day of my life. I cannot. My heart is just bursting with gratitude for what has taken place, what has happened to me today. I heard my name called over the intercom. I had just sat down for lunch. And I had to report back to my unit team. And when I got there, my case manager, Mr. Holler, he was calling. I knew I had an attorney call, but I still didn't know what it was. And when they all came on, then I heard Kim Kardashian's voice. And she was the one who told me that it had happened, that I was free, that I was going to rejoin my family.
Like, Trump listens to people who talks to him, so.
Oh my God.
I've always called her my angel, but then she turned into my war angel, because only war angels never give up. I mean, she has truly been relentless in her fight for me. And to know a woman who has never met me, who has embraced my story and taken me into her heart, not just, and this is not a publicity thing for her. Kim told me when she left that White House meeting that no matter how this turns out, that she will never stop fighting for me until I come home. So she's an incredible woman, an amazing woman. God bless all of y'all too for even covering this. And I have to say this, God bless America too. Oh, I will not waste this second chance in life. I believe that God has given me this second chance so that others may one day have a second chance. So I have an obligation not only to my family who has waited all of these years for me, but an obligation to the people who have been left behind.
And then you have Ice Cube as well, but we'll go on that. So here's two more videos, but I guess we could talk about Ice Cube right now. Ice Cube, he was talking about how he got the president to sign off on $500 billion to invest in the black community. I think it's part of the Platinum Plan, without even endorsing them. So Trump is willing to listen to people. So there's Kanye, there's Kim Kardashian, Ice Cube. Like, he's willing to listen, and he thought that was the whole point, was to vote for the best interests of black Americans. But apparently y'all would rather stick with people who don't even care about you. They're going to implement policies that might get you free stuff, but isn't going to help you in the long run. They'll give you just enough to stay slaves, just enough so you'll always vote for them. But that might not even be the case either, because if they move on to illegal immigration, they won't need you anymore. They'll have a bigger number of illegal immigrants who can vote for them now, and your vote won't really matter. So you'll start going to the wayside. So they won't be interested in your communities anymore. They won't care about your problems. They might use it to guilt people, but that'll be about it. So here's another one from a man who this helped.
We end here tonight with a first after one man received a second and third chance. Here's Jeff Pegues.
52-year-old Matthew Charles walked to the White House today, a changed man.
It feels remarkable.
He was once a so-called career offender. In 1996, he was sentenced to 35 years in prison for selling crack cocaine.
After leaving the military in 1987, where I became a lawless person, and it wasn't until my incarceration in 1996 that the transformation began.
That transformation over 21 years behind bars earned him an early release in 2016. His lawyers successfully argued that his sentence was unfair and that he'd changed. He started over in Nashville, where he worked in a food pantry and met his girlfriend.
You, Karen?
Thank you.
But freedom was short-lived when an appeals court reversed his early release and ordered him back to prison.
It was a gut shot. It was like a bitter pill.
In December, President Trump signed the First Step Act. It eased mandatory minimum drug sentences and led to Charles's release from prison again. How do you feel about President Trump?
I'm very honored and grateful that he was, signed the First Step Act. So I have nothing but respect and thankfulness for that.
Matthew Charles is believed to be the first person freed from prison because of the First Step Act. How does freedom feel?
Freedom feels wonderful.
He says his mission now is to push for others to get a first step to a second chance. Jeff Begays, CBS News.
It's crazy to me that y'all think that Trump is a racist. From day one I knew Trump wasn't a racist, but that's because I use just common sense, logic and reasoning. He has some other faults, but being a racist isn't one of them. Especially in all the people, Reverend Al Sharpton and all that were buddy with him. The only reason they don't like him now is because he was a Republican and he is going against the establishment. Probably understand it at all, and you'll probably keep on thinking. Those of you that do probably will keep on voting Democrat, and some of you will change your mind, because I know there's a lot of smart black people. And they have the information sources and the enforcement of the stereotype. It has been very strong in the black community, what it is to be black and having your black card and all that stuff. And here's the last video, and then yes, I just wanted to put my 2 cents in there, and then you should research it and see for yourself. Now, Trump didn't make the bill. This bill was already in the works from several different groups. There were several different individuals that helped make this bill. Trump signed off on it because he agreed with it. So y'all have a good night, and I hope you enjoy this last one. Peace.
Thousands of former prisoners who thought they would spend Christmas behind bars are free thanks to the help of the First Step Act. President Trump signed the legislation into law last December. The act increases the number of good conduct time credits an inmate can earn per year. It also built on the Fair Sentencing Act of 2010, signed by former President Obama, which reduced penalties for crack cocaine offenses. The U.S. Sentencing Commission says those changes can help more than 140,000 people in prison. We spoke with 2 former inmates who say they're still adjusting to their newfound freedom. Before President Trump signed the First Step Act into law, did you expect to spend the rest of your life behind bars?
I did, but I didn't, because I never gave up fighting.
48-year-old Brian Johnson says it feels good to be back in his old neighborhood in Baltimore. Nearly 20 years ago, Johnson was convicted of money laundering and drug distribution. He was sentenced to life in federal prison. But when President Trump signed off on the First Step Act last December, it meant Johnson and thousands of others were eligible for an earlier release or a reduced sentence. On July 9th, Johnson took his first step out of prison. Who did you first lay eyes on when you got out of prison?
The first person that I seen was my oldest daughter.
How old is she?
31.
You've missed most of her upbringing.
20 years of it. So when she pulled out, it was like an unbelievable feeling until I could hug her.
He says he makes about $500 per week working full-time for a delivery company. From prison life to this life, I think the assumption is, oh, you're free, you must be so excited, it must be so great.
It's great, but what comes with the greatness is reality. Now you're back out here, because when you're incarcerated, basically everything is free. Food is free, sleeping is free. In the free world, as they say, you got to pay for everything.
Has that been the biggest challenge for you?
Actually, no. Technology has been the biggest challenge for me. Right now, I have a phone, but I couldn't tell you how to work everything on the phone.
Even harder than that, finding out he has a son.
Since I've been home, I found out I have a son that's 26 years old, and he is incarcerated in the federal system.
For what?
12 years for carjacking.
Does that hurt?
Yes, it did. Because I feel like if I was here, that definitely wouldn't happen.
Recently, Johnson traveled to Washington, D.C. with the criminal justice reform group Cut 50, which aims to reduce the prison population by half. He shared his story with lawmakers, fighting on behalf of others who are still locked up.
There's a lot we have left to do.
Holly Harris, a conservative and executive director of the Justice Action Network, pushed to pass the First Step Act.
If you had told me 20 years ago that I would be working with the ACLU and the NAACP, I would have called you crazy.
According to the Prison Policy Initiative, the United States has the highest incarceration rate and the largest prison population worldwide, with about 2.3 million inmates.
This is truly an American issue. When you're in prison, you're locked in. But when you return to society, you're locked out. You're locked out of a productive life.
Clover Perez of Long Island, New York says that's exactly what she feared after being released from federal prison almost a year early. She served 8 years for immigration fraud.
My biggest concern was finding a job. I thought that I may not be marketable, and how was I going to catch up?
She eventually found a job as an office manager at a law firm. Her biggest struggle, she says, coming to grips with her oldest son's death. He was shot and killed about a year before she was arrested.
When I come home, I'm waiting for Andre to show up, and he doesn't show up. It's a battle that I'm fighting, and I fight it every day.
And every day, as more inmates work to take their first step out of the system, the next step is making sure they don't go back.
Are you a danger to society? Should people be concerned about you?
People should not be concerned about me. I don't have nothing to hide from nobody. I don't intimidate nobody. I go to work and I go home. I know for a fact that I'm a totally different person this day and age.